Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Electricity Choice, electric market changes and what they mean. I'm Vinny Civitello, Communications Manager for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is Tim Bigler of Direct Energy. A few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you tomorrow along with the PowerPoint for today's presentation, so be on the lookout for those. If you'd like to download the slides now, you can do so by clicking on the link in the Handouts tab of your GoToWebinar panel. I'd also like to draw your attention to the Questions tab. Tim would be happy to take all of your questions, so don't hesitate to write them in as they come to you. So now let's get things started. Tim?
All right, thank you very much. So as you can see here today, we're going to talk New Jersey electricity overview. We're going to try to keep it high level. But our goal today is to help you understand some of the impacts of gas market on electricity. We're going to talk about different aspects of the electric market, and then kind of blend in what you can do and what possibly a third-party provider can do for you. So with that, let's look at our agenda. We're going to look at electricity basics. Again, I'm going to focus on the basics, but with a focus on New Jersey. What can you control? And then what assistance a supplier can provide. What I mean by supplier is a third-party supplier. It could be Direct Energy or anybody. A supplier could be anybody that is in a broker consultant role. So let's look at the general dynamics of how electricity is provided to you. And this comes from PJM. I offer this suggestion to you if you are interested in learning more about electricity. They have a learning center that's pretty spectacular and goes over a lot of different things. They also have slide decks and videos of Electricity 101 and 201. So I use this here, and basically looking from the left to the right on our picture, we have generation. You see nuclear, wind, a power plant, which could be gas or coal. Then we have what we call wholesale transmission, long haul, big voltage transmission down to the retail level. So I look at it as generation, transmission, and distribution. That distribution will be step down power voltage, put it into the system for use at either a facility such as a residential, commercial, or small business or large industrial. So bottom line is whether we go from generation to transmission to distribution, it all equals money. And unfortunately, I'll be candid with you, whether it's a small business, whether it's a residential, or whether it's a very large business, unfortunately load pays for the cost of all of this. And the question is, what can I control? And that's what we hope to address today for you as we move forward here. So with our next slide, I wanted to show you, again, using PJM data. And PJM, getting back here, if you look, PJM has 13 states in the District of Columbia. It is the largest regional transmission organization in the United States. It even goes out as far for one section of Illinois in the ComEd, Chicago area. And the generation fuel mix is something you can see that was on their website as yesterday as of 3 p.m. So looking at this pie chart, we have coal, we have nuclear, and we have gas as the major components, but we also see wind there, and we do have some other renewables in the mix. Looking at the state of New Jersey, where we're sitting right now, we have JCP&L, PSEG, and ACE as the primary providers for electricity and gas in the state. So the highest price unit sets the price of power in a majority of the United States RTOs or independent system operators, specifically where there are deregulated markets. And the reason that the highest price sets the market is if the last unit in was, well, let's call it, and you will go to automobile terms, a clunker, and a new technology comes in, and somebody says, listen, I can make a car that's better than that clunker, and I can make a lot of money because that clunker is set in the price. The theory is that in time, new technologies and new generation capacity will come in and continue to try to offset the highest cost unit, thereby helping to push prices lower. But if you see, coal is dominant primarily in the western part of PJM, in that Ohio area, more as we go into the western PA area. But in in New Jersey, let's look at what we see here. This is from SNL Energy, one of the services that we deal with. And at the bottom, we have natural gas as a large fuel source here, and we have nuclear power plants, and then we move up to coal, which is rarely used. This is just the availability of power plant capacity. This is not how it's dispatched, and I can tell you right now in New Jersey, there's very little coal that gets dispatched. It's primarily nuclear and primarily natural gas. So, it's very important then to understand if the last unit in, like I said here, is natural gas, what are we talking about? So you might ask yourself, so this last unit in, primarily going to be a gas unit, so talk me through it. So this slide here is pricing. There are gas pipelines that crisscross across the United States, both inter and intrastate, and this is a pipeline in the top box named Texas Eastern. Each zone in the United States, where you have pricing zones for power, we have pricing zones for gas, and this is Texas Eastern, i.e. the acronym TETCO, a long-haul pipeline coming from the Gulf of Mexico in through New Jersey, and the zone is M3. And this price is calendar 18 and calendar 19, straight line fixed price, and you see $2.95 and $2.80. The takeaway here is that gas prices have, since May of 2015, looking at the lower scale, have been declining. Now, knowing that the last unit in sets the price, and I'm feeding gas into a generation unit, one would expect that then if gas prices were to be low and I'm putting in a lower price gas, I should get out lower price power, and in fact that is correct. The second box, the lower box, is calendar 18 again, and calendar 19, January through December. These are just straight line averages. We have prices I'll show you in a second. Around the clock price, $33.35. When I did this in 30, all around $32. So, I'm putting in lower cost gas, I'm getting lower cost power out. Now, the one thing I want to talk about here is what can a service provider do for you, okay? Whether it's Direct Energy, repeating myself, or anybody else that you use, or a consultant, or yourself, is that we can offer the supplier or yourself can look at pricing now and have some kind of idea that if gas prices are going up, it's quite possible that the energy portion of your electric bill might be going up, and if they're going down, vice versa. If we focus our eyes on the white box, what else can potentially a provider, a third-party provider, provide for you? Let's assume that the majority of customers that are on the line are looking at fixed price. You know what? I really just want to be done. I want to get my electric price set so I can go about my business. If we were pricing in mid-December and now all of a sudden you look at January, let's look at the red line, that's calendar 18, you see that the prices were up over $35 and now they're down around $33.50 per megawatt hour. One thing I think maybe a provider can help you with is timing. What is the timing? What do we think of the market? We're watching it, and what might be a good time to buy electricity? Certainly if you go and scan your eyes all the way back to May of 2016, you see prices were high, and then we had a significant drop in June. I'm going to talk about what happened in June. This generation, new generation comes on every year in PJM June 1st. So bottom line is the takeaway from here is gas prices are going down. They're taking electricity with them. And in the white box, the fixed price, if you're looking at fixed price, a provider, a third-party provider, might be able to assist you in the timing of when to buy that fixed price that might save you some money. Now, the question also comes to us, so how do you know what these prices look like? Well, this is another way to look at these line charts I just showed you, and this is the PSEG zone we talked about. And in power prices, we typically trade day ahead, and that's what the DA stands for. PSEG is for the zone. Peak is the 16 hours during the day, and then off-peak is the 8 hours overnight. And you have peak, OP is off-peak and around the clock. So we can see, we have this transparency here. Now, not to say that we're going to be able to go out and give you a specific price that matches exactly what you see for calendar 25, which is very far out the, what term we use, out the time span or out the price curve, but certainly it gives you an idea of the trend of pricing and what the market thinks pricing is doing. And we can see that let's look in just a peak. We have a 37 going all the way down to around 35.50 as we move forward in time. So the market's anticipating possibly that gas prices are going down. And as I get to again generation, you'll see that possibly there's something else that's going on here. As the same, I showed you the top box TETCO M3 fixed prices. We have 296, 281. 280, 288, and then we pretty much stay around 288. So again, we can see these prices, and it may again assist you if you're looking for a budget and you don't want to do a 1 year, or you want to do a fixed price, but you might want to do 1 year or 2 year. The transparency is there for us to be able to, us being a third-party supplier, be able to possibly advise you what we see and then help you make that decision. Let's move over to that generation. Okay, so what can you control? All right, what can you control? Energy is the biggest thing for a majority of customers. Now, if you are a large customer, or if you're a customer that is capable of getting to a different meter, and we'll talk about this offline if you'd like to, or you can get involved with a third-party supplier, get involved with the demand response program, you can control what we call your capacity and your transmission tags. Those, those transmission lines we talked about, they typically look at the peak, and you pay for the peak because you don't need it all the time, but when you do need it, it has to be there. So this capacity cost is related to generation plants, and I think this really summed up, I thought, pretty simplistically, outside of my auto example, of what is capacity, and it represents a commitment of resources to deliver. And here they use the shopping mall. And how many times have you gone to the shopping mall and seen that the parking lot is 1/10 full? It's similar with a power plant. Most power plants, run intermittently. They may not run all the time. A nuclear plant does, and there's a significant amount of gas-fired generation that's highly efficient that does, but some of the other plants might only run 50% of the year. Unfortunately, in the summertime, when it gets extremely hot, we might need them to run 100% of the time, and we might need them to run 100% of the time for 2 weeks. So therefore, they need to have some dollars paid to them, some capital, in order for them to be around when the market needs it. As such, PJM does an auction every 3 years, and right now you see it in this slide. This is dollars per megawatt day, which is kind of an odd terminology. So what we did was we converted it to dollars per megawatt hour, and these are the capacity prices that were bid in by generators for these specific time periods. And right now, coming in the June 1st time period, every capacity year in PJM starts June 1st to May 31st, we will see that the price for, let's use PSEG, focus our eyes in the red box, and the lower box, and the red dash box, PSEG. This year, the capacity portion of a bill was $17. Next year, starting June, i.e. June 1st, you'll see that that price starts to decline, goes back up again, and then drops pretty significantly in 1920. In February of this year, there'll be another capacity auction for the 2021. The point being here is that we have a significant amount of customers who will come to us and say, I don't understand, I'm seeing the data on your website, I'm seeing data from other suppliers and the providers, I'm seeing it in the newspaper, gas prices are going down, that energy portion of my bill is going down, but my bill is the same price. Unfortunately, what we want to make you aware of is that, capacity costs here are dictated by these auctions, and sometimes in some zones, you will see the capacity, the gains year over year will outweigh any gains in energy. So we wanted to bring your attention to, when you're looking at your bill, why things might be the same price, yet you hear gas prices are going lower, and this is one of the reasons. This is just one of the parts of the bill. I printed out I printed out a summary of electric and gas schedules for PSEG, and it was pretty amazing, the different numbers there. There was commercial industrial energy pricing standby fee, societal benefits charge, non-utility generation charge, solar pilot recovery charge, green program charge. So there's a lot of other charges that go in addition to transmission costs about running the lines and keeping them up to the capabilities that they need to be, especially in peak periods. So I did want to bring it to your attention. Now, again, repeating myself, for those customers who have the ability to be on certain meters, have the ability to be involved with a third-party supplier, and or have the ability to be involved in demand response, you can have a say in how your capacity tag and your transmission tag is set, because PJM looks at the 5 coincident peaks, June 1st through September 30th, every year. So this summer, they'll look at how that's set for certain customers, and if they can lower the demand significantly through those 5 hours, then their capacity charge for the next year, all right, and unfortunately it's a kind of a year ahead type of thing. What you do this year will affect next year. Certainly you can lower the multiplier, and the multiplier for next year is going to be in PSEG $16.37. Bottom line is, if you were using 10 units and this year you can use 8, and you're that customer that can do that, then you've been able to lower that capacity cost on your bill. I.e., what can I control? If I'm a certain customer class, rate class, or a certain customer, I can control how much energy I use, and I could possibly impact my generation and transmission capacity costs. That doesn't fit for everybody, but for some it does. Lastly, let's close this out with talking about renewable energy, because again, I'm getting into a situation here where we have a lot of discussions with customers, and I'll be really candid with you. A majority of customers want to talk about, the renewable part of their bill right now, because they are seeing pretty significant charges. If you were in New England right now, just to put it in perspective for you, 25% of your bill, specifically in Massachusetts, 25% of your energy bill would be going to renewables portion. New York State just created a zero-emission credits policy program to save 3 nuclear power plants in upstate New York. It's going to cost over $400 million. The the bad news potentially for some customers is that cost is going to be spread over the whole entire New York ISO, New York State zone. So, renewable energy costs are there. For some customers, though, I feel certain that, they're willing to pay that price. It's a value to them, helping the environment. One thing that a third-party provider might be able to do is help you with solar. Specifically, Direct Energy has a link on their website, and I'm sure other third-party providers might also, that discusses solar. If you have interest in finding out more about renewable energy, certainly reach out to your third-party provider, Direct Energy being one of them. But I did want to bring it to your attention, again, repeating myself with this working for you summary of electric, gas, and rate schedules for PSEG. Right now I'm looking at a solar pilot recovery charge and a green programs recovery charge. So it's there. Some states are charging higher prices than others, but we wanted to make you aware that it is coming. But there are things that are happening that maybe you can help with if you choose, and solar might be one of them. Solar costs, I will tell you right now, are probably going to be continuing to rise in the state of New Jersey as the install for solar is expanded, but we did want to make you aware of that. And with that, I'll stop and ask if there's any questions.
Thanks, Tim. We actually have one question from Thomas, who wants to get me in a lot of trouble here. So we are going to strip the company names out of his question and ask, utility provider X is significantly more expensive than utility provider Y. Why is that?
I think I'm going to give you the very simple. We try to talk with our customers apples to apples. And, when you say one is higher than the other, I think, there's certain things that happen with different bills. The timing of how bills are, the timing of when it was priced. We have certain customers who that are large enough to pass some of these capacity charges we're talking about are set, but they're willing to pass those charges through in order to have them, they're involved with demand response. They are looking at their 5 coincident peaks. They're looking to lower their capacity and transmission tags. So therefore, their price might be a little lower because they're willing to take the risk on themselves. So I don't have an exact answer for you, but I can certainly say that until I was able to see each individual offer, that it's hard for me to give you a clear-cut answer as to why one might be higher than the other. But certainly, looking at each piece of the pie and making sure that it's exactly an apples-to-apples offer would be beneficial.
Thanks, Tim. So we actually do have a couple more questions here, but I wanted to give everyone a moment to type in anything they have. While I'm doing that, I want to take a second to remind you about the questions tab. It's right there in your GoToWebinar panel. You just type in your questions. I'll get them. I'll read them out to Tim. And I also want to remind you about the handouts tab. So in the handouts tab, you can download the PowerPoint for this slideshow. A lot of the questions that I get are variations on, hey, how can I download the slides? So open up your handouts tab on your GoToWebinar panel, and they're right there for you. Another reminder, just don't be shy. Throw out anything you've got. A lot of times I read the post-webinar evaluation survey, and people say things like, oh, I really hoped he would cover, topic X. This is your opportunity to get Tim to talk about topic X. Throw out whatever you've got. So our next question comes from Billy, who asks, why is my energy priced, I guess he says, like this? So a better question would be, how is energy priced?
So again, when we talk about energy, we are speaking specifically about the electrons that flow through the wires. There are, there's energy charges. That's the cost of the fossil fuel, the wind, solar, whatever, renewables, whatever it might be. There's the cost to get them through the large transmission lines. There's the cost to get them from the distribution to your facility. The energy portion, as I mentioned, the last unit in sets the price. We are trying to get those clunkers out of the system, trying to get the Maseratis to come into the system, the highly efficient power plants to get built. And so the energy is dictated by two things. What is being built in the region that you're in? And as you notice, PSEG was extremely high because PSEG did not have a lot of in-zone generation, and they also had transmission constraints. So two things happened in PSEG. One was capacity cost, as you saw from that chart, went extremely high, incentivizing us to, incentivizing power providers to build Maseratis within the zone, and also transmission costs went down, came in, and hopefully will go down in the future. So what sets your price right now, though, the last unit in, and typically for New Jersey, is the price of gas. So if we can follow, so we have a lot of customers say, Tim, what do you think of the price of electricity in my zone? I say, what do you think of the price of gas? And that is in no way meant to be flippant. It's just a critical point, because coal plants, you typically don't turn coal plants on and off and cycle them like you can a gas plant. They want to run. They're very costly to turn on and off. They typically run all the time like gas. But because we are in New Jersey, because we have such a high penetration of gas, typically how it's set is by whatever natural gas prices are for that time period. And those do go up and down, and they do take power prices, energy prices with them, but that is typically how your energy price is set in the state of New Jersey.
We have one from Joseph, who says, our business is seasonal and has its most important peak activity during those high demand periods. And as a consumer business, it is not possible to close. How do customers with such high demand at the wrong time adapt?
Energy efficiency. Something as simple as turning up your thermostats to the point to where people, are not suffering. Closing your blinds. I mean, I think a lot of customers, really, we work with a lot of customers to try as much as possible. And I'm certain that, it's on our website, we post, and again, this is not trying to be a direct energy sales pitch here. I'm certain that other third-party providers do it also. But there's a lot of availability, even from small business. You'll see a lot of small business websites talking about some of just the basic things. And really, energy, I think some of the biggest things we can do is if you can lower your demand, and you said you can't, but if you can in any way, that helps. I mean, to significantly cut your bill during those peak periods. That timing issue. Remember, we talked about the fixed price. There may be times of the year where the price of energy for June, July, and August, three of the highest prices, they might be. Let's use a number. They might be 10 at a certain time of the year. Look at that December example. If we went back here and we looked at this example in this white box in December, embedded in that was a higher price for June, July, and August. But by January, late mid-January here where I'm at right now, those prices were lower. One of the things that can be done is, hey, I have a budget, I'm looking at a price target, I want to work on trying to, monitor the market as closely as possible. And that's also one of the things. Otherwise, in stating the obvious, energy efficiency, closing your blinds, turning your lights down. Hey, look, working with a provider that can sit with you, provide price updates for you, give you some insight as to what might be going on with the market, where they think it's going, might be helpful to you also.
We have one from Lisa, who actually asks a question that I myself could use the answer to. She says, for homeowners, it seems we have more choice of who provides utilities. Is it advisable to consider making changes in energy providers? If so, what's the best way to evaluate options?
The best way to evaluate the options is get on your kitchen table, put all 3 or 4 or 5 or however many documents were sent to you by energy providers, and do that apples to apples comparison. Really, and I would say this: if you don't have somebody around that can help you answer the questions you want to be answered, I think the best thing to do is to then call. If you pick 2 or 3 out of them, give them a call. Have them try to answer your questions. I really think that's the best way. You would never, I don't believe a lot of people would ever go in and buy a car that they didn't feel comfortable driving. If we looked at electricity prices as a car, until you feel comfortable with what you are buying, don't do anything. And certainly, I'm sure that in these offers that are out there, look at them, sit them in front of you, go through each one of them, and if you still have questions, then I would say call the providers who sent it to you and try to see if you can answer your questions that way.
We have a couple more here, but just a reminder, keep them coming. We've got Tim for the hour, but if it seems like you guys have had all your questions answered, we'll close it off just so you guys can get out to lunch early. Our next question comes from Diane, who asks, how does my gas bill differentiate from my energy bill, and how would I understand that cost? Do I pay a capacity cost for natural gas?
So in natural gas, we're talking here. We have energy, which is those power plants I showed you in that picture. If we go back here, and look at our picture, what do we have? We have energy. We have capacity for those power plants. We have a wholesale distribution charge, and then we have a retail distribution charge, and there's other charges, as I mentioned, solar, and there's what we call ancillaries I won't even get into right now. When we talk about natural gas, what are the charges we have? We have a producer who has to drill a hole in the ground. there's a cost for that. We have a producer then has to get that gas to a pipeline system. So sometimes we will have drill holes in the ground, then we have to gather that gas, we have to get it to a large pipeline system. That pipeline then has to transmit, very similar to this wholesale transmission, through a big pipe. Then it goes into a local distribution company, which may have smaller pipes underneath the ground. If you're in Trenton, where I'm sitting right now, there's gas pipes that are much smaller than the massive 36-inch pipes that bring the gas here. The charges you pay there, about the only difference is you're not paying a capacity to have that capacity for that power generation, but the transmission charges, and I'll say, what's the capacity? So what might be a similar kind of thought process for capacity? Maybe if we think about what it costs to drill. In the Marcellus in Pennsylvania, some of the lowest cost gas in the United States. Why? The depth that I have to drill to get to that gas is less depth than some of the other areas. The deeper I go for a well, the more it costs. So if there was any similarities, I would say, as it relates to generation capacity, it might be that the drilling costs in certain areas of the United States are higher than others, meaning that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer, but the transmission through the large pipes to into the smaller pipes and the distribution is somewhat similar.
One from Tommy, who asks, do you guys offer a renewable or green energy product through your company?
Yes, we do, and as we discussed, and again, I'm not going to give you the large direct energy sales pitch here. On our website, we certainly have a discussion around solar. There is a solar opportunity. Direct Energy has a solar company. In addition to that, I'm going to throw something on the table for you. You know, we talk about what you can control, and I mentioned numerous times controlling your consumption. We have a new product called Panoramic that is out in the market. They're putting out in the marketplace, and Panoramic is allowing us to put units, specific sensors on various points of electricity demand in your location, giving you insight into what you use, when you use it, and we are working with customers that way to help them with their demand response program. So we do have solar, we do have an energy efficiency group, and we do have a program related to our Panoramic product, things that we can discuss with you if you choose. Certainly, again, there are other providers that do the same thing, but I do want to make you aware that on our website there are links to those and discussion points about them.
So Thomas, who asked our first question about Utility X and Utility Y, had a couple of comments that I'm going to kind of put into a question. First of all, he called me a chicken for removing the names of the utilities, so thank you for that. He says he can't move his house to get one of those providers over another. I'm assuming whether it's you guys or not, I mean, he still has those options of selecting a different provider, though, correct?
Yes, I mean, let's be candid. You have, as always, you have your utility, right? Whether it's gas, your local distribution company, whether it's electric, your EDC, your electric distribution company. That's your first line of defense. Then you move to third party. And again, as I discussed with the question about, you know, how do I know what's right or wrong? I think you look at the providers, you look at what they are, the collateral they're putting in front of you. If you still have questions, I'm going to repeat myself again. I would say get on the phone, and you know what? Push back. You know, why is this happening? But I think it's a compare and contrast type of thing. Well, you know, provider X said this, you said that. Provider Y said this, you said that. I think until you really push back on the providers themselves, you know, get on the phone and talk to them. I can't really answer your question. I think that you probably will get the answers you want, though, one way or another, good or bad, from your perspective, by talking to the providers that are sending you some of this documentation, whether it be talking to them through a telephone conversation, through some kind of contact that they make through social media and or any other contact. I would say, to me, that's the way you get things done and the way you feel comfortable about what you are seeing from provider X, provider Y, provider Z.
That's all the questions we have, but Tim, is there anything else you wanted to add or anything?
No, I think the one thing I want to leave you with is this, and we have, just as an FYI, I put out a bi-weekly video on our website, and you can go look at them. They're archived if you want. One of the things I talked about this week was these power prices that I'm seeing in certain specific regions of the United States, and certainly New Jersey might be one of them, where, you know, we might be achieving this is my opinion, not a Direct Energy North-centric opinion, we might be coming to a price level where some of these electric power prices, despite what gas does, might not be going much lower because, you know, we're getting to we're getting rid of the 20 mile per gallon cars, and we're building new 40 mile per gallon cars in power plants. You know, how many BTUs does it take to make a kilowatt hour? A very inefficient plant, and this was just 5-6 years ago, was 10,000 BTUs to make 1 kilowatt hour. Now we're at 7,000 BTUs. If I put $3 gas into some of these plants, I used to get $30 power out, $30 per megawatt hour. Now I get 21. That's a $9 decrease. The problem is, as we bring in more and more of these efficient plants, we are pushing some of the older plants that can't compete at these price levels you see in this slide, and they can retire, they can mothball, and there is no regional transmission organization, and there's no independent system operator that can force them to run. So, you know, we might see some of these retirements go, and the efficiencies or not some efficiencies, but we call them in the peak day, the reserve margins we used to have from some of these plants goes away. We might see that coal, wherever it is, across PJM, coal prices, and we've seen a significant amount of retirement of coal plants. We've also seen a significant amount of closures of coal mines. Coal prices could go up. Coal price could actually, instead of gas, start setting the price. So, you know, I think that if I leave you with anything, nothing goes down forever. Nothing goes down forever. So, you know, when you're looking at your energy budgets in time, yes, it may be a situation where prices remain low, and very much on this slide, but my only point is they might not skyrocket up, but they may not continue down the path of, you know, continued decline over the next 5 years. Just something to think about, and again, just my opinion.
Well, that's about all the questions we have, so I think it's as good a time as any to bring things to a close. Don't forget, all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint slides via email. Lastly, when you close out of the webinar, a survey will come up on your screen that we hope you will fill out so we can understand how best to provide you important information in a webinar format. Our next webinar, NJBIA Live from the State Capitol, where our policy experts will talk about the latest in New Jersey legislation, will take place Wednesday, March 8th. You can register for that one right on our homepage at njbia.org, so don't hesitate to do that. So until next time, for Tim Bigler, this is Vinny Civitello, thanking you for being with us this morning and wishing you a good day.